Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for stopping by. And while you're here, do not forget to subscribe because I post a new video every single week. In this video, I'll be showing you how you can easily achieve a sharp edge from your fondant cake. Let's get started. For this procedure, guys, we're going to need a turntable, 2 cake smoothers, a rolling pin, a paintbrush, a very sharp craft knife, another rolling pin, the bigger one, your liquid glue, edible liquid glue, okay, a big board that is bigger than the size of your cake, cornstarch, and some pliable fondant along with the cake, of course, that we will be covering. The technique we're going to be using today is called the paneling method of covering fondant cakes. I find that this is more straightforward, and once you understand the technique, it's way easier to achieve a clean finish. So what we are going to do is basically we're going to flatten out a piece of fondant for the top of the cake and another piece of fondant for the side. So we'll be dealing with two different pieces of fondant, okay? So you want to start out with a fondant that is shaped close enough to your desired shape, okay? If you want to flatten out your fondant into a circle, you want to start with a fondant that is slightly rounded, like you can see in the video. So I have taken a piece of fondant and I'm going to flatten this out to about 1/4 of an inch in thickness. One key to achieving a clean fondant finish is making sure that your fondant isn't too flat. Another key to achieving a clean, flawless fondant finish is using chocolate ganache as the base of your fondant. If you would like to learn how I made and covered this cake in chocolate ganache, please check the description box because I will link a video that shows you how I made this ganache and how I covered my cake with it as well. Guys, the next thing you want to do is you want to grab a fondant cake smoother and smoothen out the top of your fondant. Okay, this is important because by the time you're through rolling out your fondant, you might have some kind of lines or creases on the top of your fondant, and this definitely just adds a whole extra layer of smoothness to the top of your fondant. And the only reason I'm applying some cornstarch on top is because I'm going to flip this cake and I do not want it to stick to my board. Now you want to cut the excess fondant off of your cake, making sure that you do not exceed the level of your cake, okay? What I mean is you want to cut exactly starting from where the cake starts, okay? You don't want it more and you don't want it less. It just has to be precise. So the next piece of fondant would be for the body of the cake. So we're going to start out with a log-shaped fondant. This is because we want our fondant to be wide, that's long, right? We want it to be longer than it is wide. So if we start out with a log shape, it just makes progressing from there so much easier. So I'm basically trying to measure the height of the cake because this will determine how wide the fondant would be. And then I'm also trying to measure the circumference of the cake as well because this would represent the length of the fondant. Okay, don't forget guys, the height represents the width and the circumference represents the So guys, now that we have cut our fondant, we want to roll it up on itself. And before doing that, we have to pour some cornstarch in order to prevent it from sticking to itself. So when rolling up this fondant, make sure that the edges actually lap. Okay, make sure that the edges are even. So we're going to set this aside and grab our cake. At this point, you want to grab your paintbrush and your edible glue, and we're going to apply it around the strip of fondant under this cake. I mean, it's flipped, so I guess this represents the bottom of the cake. Okay, so you want to make sure you focus on applying only a very little amount of glue on the strip of the fondant. Make sure it's only a little, you don't want it dripping, just something to make it tacky so that as soon as this one touches it, it sticks instantly. So guys, as you go around, you want to make sure you have your cake smoother close by so you can immediately secure this fondant to the body of the cake. Now, if it happens that your cake is already firm and it's dry, I mean the ganache, you want to use a steamer to heat up the body of the cake so that as soon as the fondant touches the cake, it sticks. You don't want to place your fondant on a dry cake. You want to make sure that there's some kind of moisture on your cake that allows your fondant to stick as soon as it touches the sides of your cake. So now I'm just trying to smoothen the cake even further so that I get rid of any air pockets or creases, and also to make sure that my fondant is securely stuck to the sides of my ganache. So it's now time to cut the excess of this fondant. Now make sure you cut into the two strips of fondant. Okay, wherever you choose to cut, make sure that the one in front and the one behind have sufficient coverage at that point. Okay, so you cut into the two strips at the same time. This is what will give you a seamless closure at the end of the day. It's also important to make sure your line is straight, and if you have issues cutting straight, you can use a metal ruler as a guide or any object that is straight enough. Now I'm basically applying just a little bit of moisture to the edge of just one side of this fondant while I then close it. Now make sure that you don't lap it on each other. Okay, you don't want one strip of fondant lapping on each other. You want it to be exactly on the side. Okay, you want them to be side by side, and then you use your smoother to push them together and work it until the line closes enough to almost vanish. Now, when smoothing the sides of your cake, you want to push down. It's important to push down because your aim is to make sure that you close up any gaps that might be at the bottom of your cake. Remember, when you flip this back, it's going to be the top. And this is the easiest way to achieve a sharp edge when you flip. In the process of pushing down, you would notice that some fondant pieces might clump up at the bottom of your cake. So you want to simply take your craft knife and trim it off very carefully. Okay, very carefully, guys. And after that, you now want to trim off the excess fondant on the top. Make sure that you trim every excess fondant. That is, you want to make sure that your fondant is the exact same height with your cake. And when you cut, you want to make sure that you're resting your knife on the top of your cake. That is the easiest way to make sure that your fondant is the exact same height as your cake. And when you cut, you don't want to move your knife back and forth. Okay, you want to place your knife at a spot and move your cake towards the knife. This way you would end up having a clean straight cut. So here I'm applying some glucose syrup to my board because this would help my cake stick without moving around. So after placing the board on the top of your cake, you want to make sure it is centered before you press it down. As you can see, I'm trying to put the cake at eye level to make sure that it is centered, and once I'm satisfied, I'll push my board down, stick it, and then flip. So at this point, guys, you want to grab your steamer and use this to get rid of the white patches, that the white residue of cornstarch that was left behind during the process of covering your fondant. And if you do not have a steamer, please go ahead to use clean, plain, unflavored vegetable oil along with a small paper towel. Okay, you want to give it that shine. Thank you so much for watching this video until the end. If you found this helpful, please do not forget to subscribe to my channel, like my videos, because I'll be posting more videos in the future. So until my next video, guys, bye.